It was all still. Before it all took place, and it will also be still after the process has ended. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sakana Bhavatu Sakana Bhunaktu Sagaviriyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Bhavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word, when you hear from God, will make you God. Chapter 5, which is a section of the Beatitudes. 17th, line number 17. Jesus says, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy but to fulfill." There, in the Old Testament, there are many laws or injunctions or commandments which are given unto man by the prophets for the observance of the human race. So these commandments are said to be the rules of living life. So they are the laws which have been enunciated. Just as much as, in a worldly sense, humans formulate laws in the parliament, so also these are the laws formulated by God for the good and the benefit of mankind or the human race. So these have to be carefully and scrupulously observed. Any violation of these laws is bereft with its corresponding punishment, as it is done in the world of men by men. So also in God's laws too. These are inviolable, and one will have to carefully observe and follow them. And in the Old Testament it is also mentioned that all these rules and regulations, laws which have been formulated by God, should be taught to children in their homes over and over again, so that they would become familiar with these rules and commandments of God. And they should learn to love God and to respect God, and thereby fear God as well. Three things are necessary here: to love God, to respect God, because God is your Father, is your Holy Father, and then to also, because He is your Father, the overall in charge of you, in charge of your life, therefore you also have to fear Him a little, in case you do something wrong, so that you don't violate His rules, because if you do, That is why you have to fear him. That if you do something wrong, he will give you his corresponding punishment. He has to. He can't let you go scot-free. So therefore, think not that I am come to destroy the law. I am not come to, Jesus says, I am not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill them. So in the Old Testament, you find the laws, the rules being enunciated. The rules of living life. Because after all, what is life? It's a big game. So a game must have its rules. If without its rules, you can't play the game. So any violation of the rules also leads to its corresponding punishment. It's an automatic thing. So therefore, in the Old Testament you have the rules, and then the prophecies of the prophets. The prophecies. So there are any number of prophecies, over 40 or 50 of those prophecies. Many of them have been prophesied by the prophets about the future. And some of the prophecies are with respect to the coming Messiah. The coming Messiah has been prophesied any number of times by various prophets. So Jesus says, I have come here to fulfill the prophecies which have been enunciated by the various prophets in the Old Testament. So spontaneously he knows it. So the only one who can know that what those prophecies are is the Son of God, the Messiah. Nobody else can know that. So therefore it's a confirmation that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come directly from God himself. He's a descent from God. And only such a person can know what was prophesied by God. Spontaneously he knows, and he knows when and where to, at which place and which time those prophecies have to be fulfilled by him. He spontaneously knows it and accordingly functions. So therefore, I have come here to fulfill the prophecies, not to destroy the laws too. So what are these laws? In a brief manner, these laws and rules were enunciated in the Old Testament. Not only were they enunciated, I have come to fulfill in two forms. The laws here means the spiritual worldly laws and spiritual laws. Now in the New Testament, he is going to bring out the spiritual laws and spiritual rules of living life. So I have come here to fulfill it. Yes. Prior to Jesus, there were two other messiahs who had come before him. In the East, in India, the meaning of the word Messiah is the one who came from God. And India is called an avatar. Avatar, the one who comes from God. So Krishna was the first avatar, and after that came Buddha. These are the two avatars who took birth in India. So Krishna was the first avatar. And he gave a remarkable teaching for mankind in the Indian context, in the Indian setting. So therefore you have, just as much as you have a Jewish setting, in the scheme of things with Jesus as a Messiah in the Middle East, so also in the Indian context you have our Lord Krishna in the Indian cultural context taking birth and giving a remarkable teaching for mankind. So Lord Krishna, the teaching which was given by Lord Krishna is very clear and precise, but it's very complex. The teaching of Krishna was very complex. It had a great deal of metaphysics in it. The Bhagavad Gita contains a great element of metaphysics to comprehend and understand it. So you have to understand various teachings which had gone which had come before Krishna came into the picture. The science of yoga philosophy of Patanjali, the science of the Sankhya system, the science of the Vedantic knowledge, all this was incorporated into the body of the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna. See, incorporated. And it's the Bhagavad Gita is a jungle of knowledge. Not only is the Bhagavad Gita, but the entire Indian context. The Hindu context is a veritable jungle of knowledge indeed. It contains everything, all about man's spiritual life and salvation. It's very beautifully enunciated, but it's very complex. You have to do it. It's like getting into a jungle of knowledge. And it's very difficult to find your way through. Find your way through as to what is what. So Krishna gave a very complex teaching, keeping in view the cultural system found in that area and the knowledge available at that time, because already there was a great deal of profound knowledge. Long ago itself, in the Indian context, the way to salvation was already very clearly enunciated and mentioned. And people live by it. Some people live by it. So therefore that knowledge was already available, but it was a complex structure. Very complex in nature with metaphysical concepts. So it was a little difficult. So then came the avatarhood of Buddha. Buddha simplified it, took out all the philosophies, the metaphysics out of it, and gave it a new format. He only gave it a new format. The old wisdom which was there, he took it out and presented it with a new simplified format. So that was done by these two avatars, messiahs. And then Jesus comes into the picture, the third avatar, to fulfill. That's why he uses the word, I have come here to fulfill the law, not to destroy it. Fulfill the teachings which were given earlier by the two other messiahs, the two other prophets, two other avatars, Krishna and Buddha. I have come to fulfill them, because when I go through their teachings, the respective teachings of Krishna, of Buddha and of Jesus, I find something very intriguingly unique. That is to say, Krishna's teaching is very complex. Very complex. And the essence of it, the essence of that knowledge was put across by Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha brought in with a new format. He brought it out, more simplified it, bereft of metaphysics, and bereft of the age-old Indian practice of pagan worship. So Buddha removed that totally out of the system. Even Krishna did that too. But still people went on. However much you tell them and give them the corrective knowledge, they get on to the good old ways. It's very difficult to correct and put humanity on the right track, because they still want to go through their wrong ways. They're habituated. That's their practice. So therefore, Buddha once again corrected it and gave it a more simpler system. So then came Jesus into the picture, the third one. He came to fulfill what they had mentioned. As an example, if you take the teachings of Lord Krishna and the entire Hindu system as a jungle of knowledge, then you can say that Buddha's is the very essence of it, the very essence of the teaching. And Jesus' teaching is the very cream of it, very cream of it. Just as much as the there's very cream of the milk, the very cream of the milk. So Buddha's and Krishna's teaching could be considered to be the milk, and here you have Jesus' teachings which could be compared to the very cream of it. In a brief form, very brief form, he brought out the cream of that entire knowledge into the structure here. So that is why the four Gospels is sufficient unto a man's salvation. Why? Not only the four Gospels. The very Sermon on the Mount is self-complete in its section because it is the cream of the wisdom teachings of the ancients. So that is why Lord, so whenever a teaching comes from some source, from some part of the world, that teaching is not meant only for the local residents, but it is meant for the entire humanity. So humanity must have the good grace to acknowledge and appreciate this fact and to accept and delve into those teachings which had come from other parts of the world, incorporate them into their lives and mind structure. So wherever a teaching is given in some part of the world, it is meant for the entire human race indeed. So therefore, all these teachings which have been given by the messiahs, by the avatars, so Krishna, Lord Jesus was the third in line, and he came to fulfill their teachings. So that's what I find, the very cream of the teachings, because as I am familiar with the knowledge given by Lord Krishna and the Hindu structure, and I'm also familiar with what Buddha taught and the teachings of Buddha, and when I perceive the teachings of Jesus, I find there is a connection all through and through. I see the same teaching being given in a different format, in a different way. So therefore, being familiar with all these three presentations given by these avatars or messiahs, then I'm able to see how the structure has unfolded itself. So therefore Jesus says, I came to fulfill. So in Jesus' teachings, there is no metaphysics. There is no metaphysics there. Yes. No metaphysics. In the entire, if you see the Gospels, there is no metaphysics at all. There is only a teaching which shows you the way to God. So the way to God, the way back to your source, is what is being presented. You don't need to philosophize about it. There is no philosophy there. The Hindu structure is full of philosophy. The Hindu philosophy, the Buddhist, even they call it today the Buddhist philosophy, right? Even though Buddha did not bring out a philosophy, right? He gave a teaching which will lead you to nirvana. You don't need a philosophy for that. So here similarly also, Jesus too, full well knew, and therefore in his presentations, he did not give a philosophy. God is not a philosophy. God is a reality to be experienced. And all that you have to know is to find the way, to discover the way, to know the way. The way to God, which is one and the same for the entire human race. One and the same. So therefore, that is why the early Christians were called, the early Christians after the crucifixion of Jesus. I will not use the word demise, I will not use the word crucifixion, because things followed after that. So after that, the early Christians, led by James, the brother of Jesus, the half brother of Jesus, they were who were trying to live the teachings, given by Jesus. They call them their way of living as the way. As the way. They called it the way. W-A-Y, way. They didn't call themselves as Christians. They called themselves as the ones who lived the way. The ones who lived the way. So, it's a way. It's a way of life. And thus, think not I have come to destroy the law. I have not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Fulfill it means make it more clear. What was taught by the earlier messiahs and the prophets. Because after all, the prophets received their message from the good Lord. But a messiah is someone different, wherein God himself, as God the Creator, takes a human form for the benefit of mankind in order to give mankind a teaching. That is his primary duty. To give you a teaching. And by this teaching only, he saves you. He saves you by this knowledge of the teaching, and you have to live it. You have to understand the teachings and live it. So it is in that manner that he saves you, by showing you the path, because you are blind. You are blind, you are in ignorance, you do not know clearly. So once again, with a stamp of authority, he comes and tells you, I have come to show you the way. So it is that way which has been shown and taught by Jesus. And anyone who understands and lives this teaching will get to salvation. You have to make your own effort for that. The effort to understand and the effort to live. Your life has to be lived according to the tenets and the teachings which have been given in the Gospels, or which have been presented in the Gospels. So therefore he says, I have not come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have only come to fulfill it. I have not come to destroy but to fulfill. Then he says in 18, verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. So if you want to attain salvation, every little injunction which has been presented and taught by Jesus has to be fulfilled and worked out in your life. Whatever the spiritual rules are, you have to play the game. You have to play the game or live the game. Playing the game is to live your life accordingly. So he says, until one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So you have to fulfill all of those injunctions. And the preliminary injunctions are inviolable, which have been given in the commandments. It's not only the 10 commandments, which is the tablet, in 2 tablets which is presented to the human race, but those commandments are 24 and even more than that. So all those rules and commandments, there is rules of social justice, there's rules for righteous living apart from the commandments. So all that is incorporated there. And every one of them has to be, do not lie, do not steal. There is in today's modern world, you have got something called legal theft. Legal theft. Legally you steal. You see? The big houses, the big business enterprises, and many others, legally that is why you have got the lawyers and the accountants to help you to legally steal. You see, a theft is a theft. Whether it is After all, these laws have been framed by, these human laws have been framed by the humans. Right? So all that, even that is a theft. Even a legal theft is a theft indeed. You cannot escape. So thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt speak the truth, thou shalt not worship idols. These are all commandments of God, which have to be, every one of them will have to be observed. When you worship the idols, as it is said in the old commandments, in the Old Testament, you sin. You sin. The first form of sin is that you disregard God, which is a sin. That is why you are worshipping idols. You have left God and you are worshipping something else. By that you are dishonoring God. You have to. So in order to worship God, you must understand and know what God is. And God is one of those words, the three-lettered word, which is the least understood in the world. Whether they be Christians, Hindus or others, a good majority of them do not understand the meaning of the word God. What is God? Because if God is the final end and the goal of your life, the first step that you have to do is to understand what is understood by the term God. What does that word signify? God, the term God does not mean a person or a being. It is a state of existence. And as we go on in this section itself, what it is will be made more clear. But so therefore the word God has to be comprehensively understood. Then after that only you can successfully undertake the pilgrimage of life. Life is a pilgrimage. So therefore, but we have made it a pleasure resort instead of a pilgrimage. So you are the pilgrim of the soul. You are the pilgrim of the soul. And thus, so on one side, as we said, when you begin worshipping idols, you disregard and dishonor God the Father. That's one sin. It's a great error, it's a sin. You live in your Father's house. This is the mansion of God. This entire earth is the mansion of God in which you are dwelling. And He is your Father, the unseen Father. And you have disregarded your unseen Father. And then thereafter, you have invented or projected idols which resemble you, made out of wood or stone or metal, and then you begin worshipping and propitiating them. That is the second sin. And this has been very clearly mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. In the book of Jeremiah, very clearly these two sins have been very precisely stated. So by this we have the humanity, the human race has disregarded God by this error. So God has to, what is God has to be very clearly, the term has to be very clearly understood. Then if you will understand that, then you will know where to seek for God, where God should be sought after. That understanding will unfold. So, shall no wise pass from the Lord till all be fulfilled. Till all be fulfilled. when he says all be fulfilled, all rules and regulations of course have to be fulfilled by you. Whatever injunctions which have been given in the form of the commandments. So that means in order to experience God, each person leading or trying to find the way should live a noble, righteous, honorable life. By so doing, you fulfill all the rules and the injunctions and commandments of God. That's all. You've got to only note these things. That's all. To live, be honorable in all what you are and all what you do. To be righteous. And when you are not righteous, you do wrong to another. That's clear. And to be just. And to be good. If you are good, you will not be bad and not do anything bad. You are just good. You can't expect a good man to do anything bad. Nor can you tell a good man to do anything wicked. It's not possible for him. Right? So, if these are observed, then automatically all the commandments will fall into place. If these three things are observed, all the commandments, more than 20 to 30 of them, will all fall into place with respect to this. So they have to be carefully observed. These are the ethics of life. Ethics, the worldly ethics of life, and moral principles, the moral principles of living life. So they fall into that category. And then, till all be fulfilled, what are all be fulfilled? All stands for two things. All spiritual laws are fulfilled. That's one. What will be the spiritual laws? They also have to be fulfilled. And then all karmas have to be fulfilled. Whatever karmas, actions, functions or duties that you have, a duty or a function or a karma that you have, all that has to be totally fulfilled. That's what he says. Not one should be left out. Whatever your karmas, whatever you are supposed to do as a duty, has to be scrupulously, to the best of your ability, to be done and fulfilled. You don't have to tell any person in the world what his duty is. Subconsciously, consciously and subconsciously, everyone knows what his duty is. He knows it. And if he has perchance transgressed his duty or not performed it, that too he knows it. He knows it. That he has not done his duty by something or somebody. He knows it. He may try to bypass it, hide it, cover it up. But no matter what he does, his conscience will tell him. His conscience will tell him, hey boy, you have not done this. You know it, you feel it. You feel it, you know it. So therefore all your karmas have to be done. Completed. So when you have completed, only can you exit this universe. After all, what is salvation? Salvation is nothing but to exit this world. Exit. You know, entrance and exit. You enter this world. Now you have got to exit this world. So you cannot exit it until and unless you have completed your karmas. So till your karmas are there, you will have to come back here. So therefore, you have to, all the karmas, whatever karmas, duties and functions a person has, he has to totally do it and finish it. So that's what he says here. Then therefore, in the verse number 19, the section 19, he says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever, therefore, whoever it be, doesn't matter who, whether it be a layman or a priest, whoever he is, or a person of authority, or an ordinary simple person, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, even the smallest commandment, if he breaks and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Not only does he break it, but he teaches others also to break it. You also do the same thing. It's all right, it's a small thing. It's a small thing, just do it. So even if there is a small thing, it is an error indeed. A lie is a lie, whether it's a big lie or a small lie. It's a lie. So therefore, that is what he says here. That is what he implies here. So even a small error is an error. And if you were to tell others also, you can just break this rule or break this injunction. No, not at all. It cannot be done. So that is why he says, whoever, whether you are in authority, who is the one who is in authority? The parents are in authority. When the telephone comes for the father or the mother, and the child picks up the phone, and then immediately the child is told the father is not at home. Well, why? You have trained the child to say that. Tell him I am not at home. So the child picks it up. The child picks it up. That line is okay. Because the father taught the child, or the mother taught the child. So that is what he says here. So persons of authority, in authority, should be very careful to observe those laws. Because what in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Mahabharata it is said that people follow their elders in society in all ways, in all manner, in all happenings, they follow their elders. So the elders in society have a responsibility to see that they function rightly, because those who are under their care will follow them automatically. So there is a sense of responsibility on the part of the elders. Then he says, so such a person who does something wrong and teaches others to do the same is considered to be the least in God's scheme of things. Least in the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven is considered the least person in God's domain. But on the other hand, whosoever shall do and teach them the right thing, shall be called the great in the kingdom of heaven. Because the person has taken the trouble to live in a correct manner and teaches others to do the same too, the one in authority, he will be called noble, great in the kingdom of heaven. He will be considered well by God, such a person. So, now here certain moral principles are being laid out, how man should conduct his life, no matter what the situation is. A classic story I will tell you. In the Mahabharata episode, the great epic of India, wherein the battle was taking place in the Mahabharata war, in the Indian tradition, thousands of years ago. And in that war, the two parties were on either side, the warriors, the kings and all rulers from all parts of India. So it was a war which transpired wherein the whole of India was involved. So kings and rulers and warriors from all parts of India gathered at Kurukshetra for the war indeed. Now, positions had been taken and they were warring. At one point of the war, one of the generals in the army was very powerful, and that day Dronacharya was very powerful, one of the generals of the army, and he was invincible. That day he was invincible, and they realized that if we allow this person to carry on like this, with full vigor and power, because they had at that time extraordinary power and valor in them, and if we allow this general to carry on like this, he'll wipe us all out on that day. In life there are certain days on which you are at the top. That is your day, wherein you are invincible, and that was that day. And he had become invincible. So now how to check this? Then they hatched a scheme. The other party hatched a scheme that tell that Ashwatthama, his son, is dead. Ashwatthama, his son, is dead. And so this news was because Ashwatthama was the son of this general who was also partaking in this war. He is dead, and he had a great deal of extra love and sympathy for the son of his, the only son of his. And when you hear that your son is dead, of course you lose your enthusiasm and you sink down. So this is the way by which they thought that they could bring down his powers. So they said Ashwatthama is dead. Now he also knew that's not easily possible. So he said, I will not believe it until Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was the prince of truth. Until he was the prince of truth. Unless he says, I will not believe it. So Yudhishthira was told, hey, you better tell. He says, unless you tell, he won't believe it. You better tell. So Yudhishthira, who was the prince of truth, who was the virtue of dharma, who was so righteous and noble in all what he was, it was said that his chariot was 2 inches above the ground all the time, because he was so noble in his ways, so righteous and correct. He said, no, I won't do it. Then they said, well, you had better tell. There was an elephant called Ashwatthama. That Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead, you better say. Very reluctantly he said. So with great reluctance, he said, Ashwatthama Gajaha has died. He said, use the word Ashwatthama loudly, Gajaha softly. Gajaha the elephant. is dead. So the word Gajaha he used most softly, which Drona did not hear. So when he said, he only heard Ashwatthama, the Gajaha, the elephant, its feeble words, elephant in feeble words, is dead. So he believed it, and that moment his enthusiasm and inspiration to fight came down. But at the same time, for having said this falsehood, that from that moment onwards, Yudhishthira's chariot, which was 2 inches above ground, settled down on the ground. Because of this little lie, white lie. Because of this lie which he had uttered for the first time in his life. So therefore, there is no such thing called a small lie. So that's what he means here. Even a small error has its implications and consequences. So, then he continues. In 20, section 20, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, all of you humanity, that except your righteousness means accept your nobility, correctness, that you are correct in all what you are and all what you do, shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. So the scribes and the Pharisees are the religious people, and the Sadducees, they are the priests, and the Pharisees, they are also semi-priests who do religious functions, and the scribes too, who are the writers of the law, the scribes who write. It is the scribes who have written the Old Testament and the New Testament. So they are the scribes who write. They are professionals. They are like your, how do you call them here? Secretarial stenographers. So that's the word of they are the scribes, very professional, very thorough in their work and writings, and they are knowledgeable people too. You cannot ignorantly write, you have to know what you are writing. So the scribes knew. So they were masters of the law, they knew the laws of the Old Testament, they knew everything. And the Pharisees too, Pharisees also, they have got semi-priestly functions. They are not priests who do the priestly rituals. Those who do the priestly rituals are the Sadducees, while the Pharisees are those who do semi-religious functions, and many of them become so as a showman, to show that we are honorable people. It's a big show for them. That is why they are dressed in their splendor, in their clerical splendor. And so therefore, unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of these people, because they are making a show of things too, many of them. So that is why Jesus' teachings were rejected by the Sadducees, Pharisees, and the scribes. They rejected his teaching because it threatened them. It threatened their practices. It threatened their power. It threatened their power, their practices, and their wrong practices. So therefore they were scared. In short, they will be put out of business. You can put it that way. They can be put out of business. So they were scared and they did not want Jesus' teachings. It's the same old thing all over the world. The priests are those who are hostile. The ritualistic priests are those who are hostile to the good knowledge and the good teachings which come down, because they'll be out of business. Right? It's a case all over the world. It's not only in one part of the world. So therefore he says, unless your righteousness exceed the hypocritical ways of these people, so you must be. It doesn't matter what they do. You're not concerned. But even if all people around you do the wrong things, you must have the courage and the strength to do what is right. Right? So that is what he means here. Unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of those around you who may not be righteous, but nevertheless you have to be righteous. You shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So another injunction is given here. In order to enter the kingdom of heaven, that's God's domain, you have to be righteous. Then in 21 it is said, you have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. So that's one of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not lie. So these are commandments. So thou shalt not kill. You should not kill. And John the Baptist tells the soldiers, they ask him, what are we to observe? So John the Baptist says, you should not kill in warfare women, children, and old people, and those who are not related in the war, who are not actively involved in the war. So you should not kill. But nevertheless, so these are injunctions for the soldiers, that they should not commit murder. So even whether in uniform of a soldier, the uniform of a policeman, you should not commit murder. You just can't take your gun and shoot one and all. You see? You must refrain from that activity. So that is why he says, thou shalt not kill, whether you are in uniform or out of uniform. Right? A murder is a murder. A murder is a murder. If you kill somebody who is not standing in front of you with an offensive weapon, then it is murder. To kill defenseless people. In any part of the world, you cannot give an excuse and kill them. Mass killing, genocide being done in various parts of the world. Mass slaughter is being done. Ethnic cleansing is being done by armies in various parts of the world, wherein they kill women, men, children, old people, innocent people. They are all being killed. So thou shalt not kill. So John the Baptist said that very clear. So thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. And you cannot give orders also to kill people. It's not only the person who executes it, But the one who gives the order to is the first culprit. The one who gives the order to kill people at random, to commit murder. So the one who gives judgment, the one who gives the order is even more responsible, So therefore what orders one gives must be very careful in that. So if your territory is being invaded by an invading army, then you can get together and fight the army. You can. On your own, you don't go out and mercilessly kill people. Singly, individually or collectively, you cannot kill people. Unless a foreign country, a foreign power, or a foreign king, in the olden days they were kings, they entered your territory, then you have to protect and defend yourself. You have to protect and defend yourself. That's a different issue altogether. So therefore, one must be very careful about this, not to take the life. Even you think twice. You as an ordinary man, you think twice of taking the life even of a worm, isn't it? As much as possible, you would like to avoid trampling or killing even a little worm if you can't help it. Right? So when your conscience is so, how can you kill a fellow human? So that is what he says, that thou shalt not kill. Because the animal in you makes you do that horrendous act. Then, but I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. So, but I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother. Why are you angry with your brother? Without a cause. Without a cause, without a reason. When do you get angry with people without a reason? Tell me. When do you get angry with people and you are unfriendly and hostile with people without a reason? Tell me. When? Without a cause, without a reason, you are unfriendly and hostile to people. All right, I'll tell you. And this we find all over the world, by all people. When somebody belongs to another race, to another religion, isn't it? You are unfriendly, sometimes even hostile. Another tribe, and another caste. In India, another caste. People are unfriendly and at times hostile. Without a cause. There is no cause. He is another human being. Isn't it? We find this in practice in the world. You're unfriendly. And sometimes angry too, that the other person doesn't belong to your race, your religion. So there is a hostility. So, but I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause, and sometimes you are angry with somebody too, because you are envious. Isn't it? You are jealous, especially so amongst women. And all the women are smiling. Yes, sometimes they can be. So that is why without a cause, shall be in danger of the judgment, because you are unnecessarily angry. Sometimes people go about angrily also, isn't it? Because he is angry with the whole world around him. So he is going about angrily. There is no cause for it. He is angry. He is angry with everybody. And with everything. He is angry. So you have got to calm this man down. Yes, unnecessarily become angry. Nothing is right anywhere for him. Everything is wrong somewhere. Right? So without a cause. So therefore, is in danger of the judgment. Is in danger of the judgment. Then, whoever shall say to his brother, Raka. Raka is a Greek word. It's a Greek word. And yes, it is an ancient, it is a Greek word which means whoever shall say to his brother Raka. Raka means here you are holding the other person in contempt. In contempt. You see? And this too is there common in the world. When you hold people in contempt, right? Racially you hold a person in contempt. In a religious sense also you hold another person of belonging to another religion or a sect in contempt. And in India, of course, the caste contempt is there very much. And you cannot even imagine how it is. The caste hierarchy is so bad in India that they are mutually contemptuous of each other. So contempt. What right have you to have contempt on the other person? Contempt. So no person, even a poor man on the road, you don't view him with contempt. He is also an honorable human being. Even a beggar too on the road, you don't hold him in contempt. Rather, you should have sympathy and pity for that man, for his current status as a beggar in rags with no home. You don't look upon him with contempt, but rather you should look upon him with kindness. So this idea of contempt, and this has become an endemic practice in India, wherein they hold these people in contempt. The caste contempt is so bad in India. So they have a contemptuous attitude towards the other fellow beings who belong to another caste in India, and considers oneself as superior. No? So therefore, you should not say Raka, hold somebody in contempt in the world, and shall be in danger of the counsel. Shall be in danger of the counsel of God. But whoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Thou fool. So nobody is a fool in the world. Everybody is learning. Even a child is learning. So you don't tell the child you are a fool. You correct him. You correct the child. Of course the child does not know. So therefore do not put down a person. Do not put down a man. He feels bad about it. He feels bad about it. Shall be in danger of hellfire. So therefore do not treat and do not call people like that. Give a teaching. Approach them with love and kindness, and educate them and teach them. That is what has to be done. Then he says, therefore if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there remembereth that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. So if you bring something to the altar, a gift to the altar, but at the same time you have got some animosity or a problem with a fellow brother of yours which is filling your mind. When you came to the altar, that was in your mind, your anger and animosity against your brother. Then he says, leave the gift there. You are not eligible to bring the gift in this angry or disturbed state of mind. When you take something to the altar, do you take it with a disturbed state of mind? No, you don't. You take it with reverentially and lovingly. So therefore he says, first of all, you go and meet that person and go. First be reconciled to thy brother. First be reconciled with him. Meet him and discuss the matter with him and be reconciled. And then, especially if thy brother hath aught against thee, he has got something against you, if he has something against you, or if you have something against him, it's both ways. If he has got something against you, or if you have something against him, and it is disturbing you, then you should get it reconciled. You should get it reconciled before you, that means bring out peace. Bring out peace between the two. And then bring the altar and hand it over. I remember a man telling me, he and his wife, they went to meet a holy man whom they knew. But she was in a very angry mood, his wife. Though they knew the holy man, his wife was in a very angry mood. And with anger, she went along with the husband, entered his cottage, and promptly he told the woman, stand out! Because she had entered with an angry frame of mind. The husband, of course, was a little not pleased about it, but he couldn't say anything about it, but that is how it is. That is how it is. So therefore also God too, you don't approach him with such a frame of mind. First make your peace. Make your peace with the other person. So be reconciled to thy brother and then come and offer thy gift. Offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him. So if you have got a legal problem with an adversary, and wherein you are at fault, then it is better for you, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. So if you are at fault, it is better for you to meet your adversary and come to a settlement before it's taken to the court, to the law court, and to the judge, and then a verdict be given against you, and you end up in prison. So it's far better for you to, before that itself. So that is why before these cases take place in the world, legal cases, it is better to have a settlement before. All right, give in a little, have a settlement. If you are in the wrong, if you are not in the wrong, it's a different issue. But if you are in the wrong, it is better to have a settlement of some order and clear the mess up. That's what he says here. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. So in such situations wherein you have got a problem with your adversary, and if you are in error, you will have to pay your debts and thereafter only get released. That's what he says here. Then there is another section beginning, and we will see that in the afternoon.